You here?
Hello.
Okay, I got you. Good morning. The date is August 20th, 2026. The time is 10:02 a.m. I hereby call to order the symposium of the City Council of the City of Groveland, Florida. Jenny, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Mayor Keith Kehoe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Barbara Gaines. Here. Councilmember Amy Jo Carroll, absent. Councilmember Michael J. Cox.
Here.
Councilmember Stephen Shulkowski.
Here.
Interim City Manager Tim Maslow.
Here.
Interim City Attorney Richard Geller, absent. Sergeant at Arms Sammy Anderson. Lieutenant Sandy Anderson. And City Clerk Jenny Wright here.
Thank you. Agenda item 1, water and wastewater capacity.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the long-awaited wastewater and water capacity symposium today. Thank you for your patience. I want to thank the team. Mr. TJ Fish is our lead with staff, and then he's joined by Justin and Rich, both from Woodard and Curran. Today, you're going to get the opportunity to catch up on the plan that we have for enhancing wastewater capacity and potable water capacity. And this is a non-action item today. It's really to catch up, ask the tough questions, get a good feel for the direction that we're taking. And then this will help with also the action item that you have at the 12:30, which is amending our plan moving forward with the state, with FTEP. As you know, we discussed this at Monday night's council meeting. Really, the whole premise for this is to help align our values, the council, our staff, our consultants, so that we're all moving in the same direction and ask the tough questions. That said, TJ, you want to take the lead?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tim. Mayor, members of council, it's very important sometimes when we're doing this type of series of presentations to make sure that for you to really get a sense of where we're going, it's important to know where we came from. And as I jump into this, we're going to actually give you a series of 3 separate but related presentations today. We're going to open with an overview that I think is extremely important and time critical to reinforce for everyone in the room, for the public, what is this partnership we have with Woodard and Curran? Because my experience as a director attempting to keep myriad things in motion, that Woodard and Curran, it's kind of this catch-all of, well, it's the company. And really it's, the reality is the sum is greater, I apologize, the whole of what Woodard and Curran brings is greater than the sum of the parts. So when we look at what the total package is, it's compelling, and we want to remind you of that. And I want to start off with some personal comments as your director for the last 7 years. When I was charged in 2019 with starting to improve Groveland utilities, it was after years of elected officials on the city council dealing with repeated problems, water main breaks, service issues, lack of funding, lack of understanding. And that started to finally change in 2019, and a couple of key things happened. The city hired Woodard and Curran to do one thing at that time, and that is operate and manage the utility systems. So they took on as many employees as they felt like were appropriate from the utilities team to bring onto the Woodard and Curran team. They could not hire everybody at that time because not everybody was ultimately qualified under the Woodard and Curran standards. So some of those employees found other places within Groveland, some moved on. But that was the first step. And then we began the following year the utility master planning. And while master planning was happening, we were also evaluating the conditions of the existing systems. And so out of that, there were 2 major approvals. 2021, it was approvals of 2 different facilities plans that are extremely important, and some cities just do not get this. We did. You do the facilities plans, it's a lot of work, and you submit them to DEP, and it's all about existing needs that already were there without the growth. So those existing needs were evaluated both for drinking water and for water, wastewater and reclaimed water, which DEP calls the Clean Water Program. And it led to a series of capital projects that we then, in 22 and 23, entered into design. The second year of that master plan, when it was adopted in 2022, it took the growth management plan of Groveland, the future land use, the comp plan policies, and looked at not, let's project what growth might be. It was, let's take every property annexed in Groveland, assign the entitlements to how many equivalent residential units do we need to plan for water impacts and for sewer impacts. And that final utility master plan captured all existing needs and what the growth would ultimately impact in terms of Groveland's capital needs. And candidly, to cut to the chase, there were a couple things that were quite fortuitous. Because we did the facility plans and filed them with DEP and had them approved, and yes, this does connect to your 1230 public hearing on the Clean Water Facilities Plan. Because of those plans, we've received well over $60 million in grant opportunities for utilities. For a city of 26,000, ask anybody in Florida. That's incredible that we brought in that many grant opportunities just for utilities. So, and a huge issue was that new water treatment plant now under construction at Villa City Road and US Highway 27. That was both an existing need and needed for future growth. And that's 100% paid for construction. It's a $25 million grant. Does not happen every day, doesn't happen every year, might not even happen every decade, but we have a water plant completely paid for. So as I take you down this path and lead you into Justin's presentation on the partnership, we've continued to do other things, including changing out 5,000 off-brand meters that needed to be eradicated from the system. So that's been successful. We've continued to replace old infrastructure in and around our downtown historic Taylorville area. We've managed to kick off the biggest capital project ever for Groveland, which is the modernization of your Sampe wastewater plant, and then the expansion of that plant to support growth that was already approved by Groveland. So it's a lot of things that, even though it's big and there's cost associated, these are major successful executions of getting money and moving projects forward. So with that, I want to now shift into the fact that 7 years later, after designing all those projects, moving into construction, we're now talking about the one project later today that does have a lot of growth associated with it, and it's the new wastewater facility. So just know that we're going to go over the partnership first. We're going to get into capacity, both water and sewer, and give you that background. And then because it was advertised at 12:30 p.m., we need to hold off the presentation of the Clean Water Facilities Plan until then, but you can certainly utilize, as we wrap up the capacity presentation, to begin answering or asking any of the questions you have in preparation of the 12:30 public opportunity to comment on the Clean Water Facilities Plan. So I'll stop there. Mayor, Council, if you have any questions before we begin, we'll entertain those. Otherwise, we'll enter right into it. Justin DeMello.
Okay, thank you, TJ. So just a brief history. TJ did a really nice job of kind of updating us on the history and the partnership, but just so you guys understand who Woodard & Curran is, we wanted to provide you a little bit of background. So Woodard & Curran is a company founded in 1979, really around the Clean Water Act, 100% employee-owned, 1,300 employees spread out across the country, 26 offices, 90-plus facilities that we operate, on behalf of both public and private clients. Woodard & Curran is largely a consultant that focuses on a couple things. Water and community enhancement, right? That's kind of the primary focus, everything around the environment. But then we have funding and operations as well. And I think it's important for us to distinguish that within the Woodard & Curran portfolio, funding, water, and community enhancement fit within what we call a consulting business, and then operations and management is a separate business within Woodard & Curran that strictly focuses on the operation of public and private utilities. And that's, again, boots on the ground all day, every day, right? Operating assets for our clients. So for the city of Groveland, we operate and maintain your water, wastewater, and reclaim infrastructure From a wastewater perspective, that includes 2 treatment plants, 113 miles of pipe, 66-plus lift stations. I think we might be close to 70 when you include some of the ones that are also within kind of our oversight or overview. 2 disposal sites. We update and monitor your fog and industrial pretreatment program. We've got permits and compliance associated with wastewater. On the drinking water side, we've got 5 drinking water facilities, 8 production wells, probably close to a half a dozen storage facilities, whether they're elevated storage or ground storage, 151 miles of pipe, booster stations. We do meter reading on your behalf, as well as permits and compliance on the water. Reclaim side, we've got an augmentation well, around 620,000 gallons per day of distribution to the reclaim system, 46 miles of pipe, storage, pump stations, and meter reading. Right now, we currently have a staff of 21 people. That's all day, every day, led by Ben Von Hars and Trevor here behind me. We have 21 staff, but we do have some vacancies. We are budgeted for 28, but the team is doing an excellent job managing, trying to grow, trying to hire, trying to establish an adequate level of service. But right now, the number of staff is down from what we were budgeted for. We are in year 7 of our contract with Groveland. The contract, I think, is important to describe it, is it's a cost plus fixed fee, right? What that means is you see our books, we have a cost, right? Cost for employee, labor, benefits, wages, uniforms, right? Vehicle insurance, right? There's a cost, and then there's an added fixed fee, right? That we don't know at the beginning of the year, right? We provide a budget and we say, based on our experience, based on historical numbers, this is where we think you're going to be, right, with respect to budget. Chemicals, right, power, the number of emergencies that happen every year, the amount of growth that's projected, how many new lift stations come on board, right? Some of that isn't exactly defined, right? How many lightning strikes are going to happen and we're going to have to send people out to respond, right? How many water main breaks are going to happen where we have to send people out to respond, right? So the budget is a best guess, right, at the beginning of the year of what it's going to be. So the cost of that is our cost of operations, chemical, power, right, people, right, and then a fixed fee on top of that. Currently, this year 7 budget, we are under budget, but largely because the staff reduction, largely because they're operating on less staff members.
And I will add a couple points for your consideration. One is we've strategically removed certain financial responsibilities from Woodard and Curran that the city could take on ourselves directly to avoid the 5% additional expense. One of the biggest ones is when it first started, they were paying the electric bills to Duke Energy and Seco. We took that responsibility, gave it back to finance. So when you're paying $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year, removing the 5% fixed fee saves the city money. We are thinking that way. The other thing is, city owns all assets. That means every facility, every truck, every meter, every piece of equipment, it's still owned by the city of Groveland, although operated and managed by Woodard and Curran.
And it's important to say that, we operate your infrastructure, right? So if your infrastructure is a 1988 Chevy, right, our guys have to do their best to maintain it, find parts for it, right? We may make recommendations that, hey, it's time to trade this in and get a new one, which would kind of pivot to a capital project, but we still operate your assets, right, as they are in the ground, as they've been inherited, by you. So this slide is really not intended for you to be able to read this, but every month our O&M team, Ben and his team, provide a monthly operating report that we provide that's publicly available at Groveland. This one you can see here is from June 2026. This is just the executive summary kind of snapshot. But this is provided monthly to you, is available for you, and this one here is 34 pages, and it describes all the activities, right, that our O&M team has performed for you on a month-by-month basis. That's the amount of gallons that ran through our treatment plants, that's the amount of service orders that were completed, that's the amount of inspections, public interactions, right, all of that stuff is logged and reported to you guys on a monthly basis. Then we shift to the other part of our business, right, which is consulting, right? That's the water and community consulting. This is your off-site folks, right? The on-site folks are the O&M team that are here all day, every day. Now, Rich and I and TJ may argue that him and I are also here every day, but off-site, right, we have access to those other, right, 1,300 individuals within our company that can support Groveland based on task orders. Those are planners, professional engineers, scientists, fiscal individuals, right? And these are defined task orders by scope, schedule, and budget. So far to date, in the 7 to 8 years that we've been involved in Groveland, we've been assigned 85 different task orders. 26 are still active, 59 have been completed. Woodard & Kern is one of several, consultants, professional service consultants within the City of Groveland's Library of Professional Services Library. Right, beyond, right, the day-to-day tasks, right, because we're doing so much, because we've got an O&M team that's involved in a fiscal team, you've got the access to both Rich and I that largely operate on overhead, not on specific tasks, to provide holistic utility support, meetings like this, interdepartment coordination, right, between the city manager's office, the finance office, the billing department, TJ's Public Works, you name it. We operate kind of interchangeably across those. We want to be an extension of your staff. We want to be an integral part of your community. And I believe we've achieved that through that kind of program management level of service across a variety of task orders that have very defined scope, schedule, budgets.
And to reiterate, we do have other engineering firms, and we do select other engineering firms to do other projects. But for me running the department and program, it is often beneficial to bring Woodard & Kern specifically in to evaluate and assist with specific issues that relate to operations and management for obvious reasons. And it's why I said at the beginning, the whole of everything that they provide is greater than the sum of the parts. That holistic support allows us to be extremely nimble in being helpful. So for example, that extra add value, that natural charm of extra service to get the fire department 3 correct with water and sewer issues, to get the South Lake Regional Park done correctly, dealing with a developer building the infrastructure and another contractor making the water, sewer, and reclaim connections. It seems like a little thing, but it's not. It's all, that extra holistic support is why things go as well as they do.
So the list here is not intended for you guys to read, but really to describe, the level of activities that have been performed over the last 7 years by our consulting team. I do want to show you just a kind of a snapshot of a zoom-in focus of what, a handful of those are. You can see them here. Some of them are active, some of them are dormant and or closed or completed. Starting from the top, we've got the Sampe Wastewater Treatment Facility Construction Administration, right? It's a $2.2 million task order, but it's a 30-month assignment. All right, similarly, you've got the Sunshine Water Treatment Plant Lower Florida and Aquifer Well, right? $1.1 million assignment, but also an 18-month assignment. Then we're doing smaller projects, right? Lift station upgrades designs. We're doing State Road 50 relocation design of utilities. We're doing a sanitary sewer evaluation, infield services of your collection system. Projects that have been completed that I think are worth highlighting, an industrial pretreatment program. Years ago, there was a large fog user in town that was basically taking in trucks of fog and sending it directly to your wastewater treatment facility. That caused millions of dollars in damages and power and chemicals in excess of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that the city was taking ownership of, right? We identified it, we developed an industrial pretreatment program, and now our O&M staff is executing that.
By the way, fog is fats, oils, and greases. It's a big issue for our sewer plants. So when he says fog, that was a big deal to address that issue. It was killing our wastewater plant.
Other task orders, wet utilities review, when developers come in and say we want to build 2,900 units, right? Our team mobilizes and evaluates that to see what the impacts of that investment or that potential development are going to be on the city's utilities, right? Not just at the point, but also downstream, how they're going to impact lift stations, water treatment plants, how we're going to be able to provide them adequate pressure. So our team provides those wet utility reviews of those developments as they come in. Beyond that, right, we did a Sampe Road treatment plant upgrade. That's the project that TJ mentioned, the $50 million treatment plant. Woodard & Kern was in charge of the design of that. That was a $2.7 million design. So again, a 2-year effort, right? $2.7 million, a very extensive effort. And the last project you see on there is a vulnerability assessment, $150,000. So again, these are just an example of some of those 85 projects that I listed on the previous slide to show you kind of the breadth and the depth of the variety of task orders, right, that we've assisted the city with.
So I'll point out on the Sampy Road, for example, this was very important to me, that if we had hired just an engineering firm that knows utilities that's unrelated to Woodard and Curran or Groveland, that Sampy project, it's a $50 million construction project. That should have been a $5 million design based on what a lot of consultants would charge. Again, we're looking at saving the city as many dollars as possible through working with Woodard and Curran creatively and bringing in grant opportunities.
And I think what TJ wanted to say there is just the efficiency of us having teams there all day, every day, and our operations staff allows our engineering team that efficiency versus bringing someone in from the outside.
Correct.
to do that same effort, right, without that kind of institutional knowledge of the actual workings and inner workings of the facility. So then the third part of consulting for us is what we call fiscal solutions. And this is us and a dedicated team within Woodard and Curran to develop, manage, and proactively execute what we describe as a fiscal initiative plan, right, that marries up with your capital improvement plan, that identifies projects and then will pair them up with grant opportunities across a variety of different programs and say, this is how we think you should execute this large capital need that you have. In this case, Groveland's was identified at $330 million several years ago, and our fiscal solutions team has gone to work since, right, developing a program and a strategy around what grants to apply for and when, which ones to pre-position you for and when. We've submitted dozens of applications and secured what we describe as probably millions of dollars in alternative funding for the city. The other element of that is it's not just grants. Sometimes it's which program is best based on a low-interest loan perspective, right, or a loan perspective, right? Some programs offer 40-year terms at prime rates of 7%. Well, that's going to be a very large number when you talk about your interest paid over time. So this team strategically thinks about your capital improvements and strategically positions them for the lowest life cycle cost, lowest customer cost to your city. That team also does very specific tasks around helping you manage those grant programs, because if you've ever read some of those grant or loan agreements, they're equally hundreds of pages of requirements. AIS, Davis-Bacon, infield interviews of staff that are there, making sure they have their proper paperwork and they're eligible to work, you know, in the country. We support annual and single audit support for communities around all that paperwork, making sure it's documented in a place so that when you do get audited for using public funds at the end of the year, right, we have everything secured in a place that's ready for you to upload and submit to show them that, right? We also offer the benefit of what we call a proprietary system that we built internally is called Fund Flow. And really what that means is when there's dozens of programs, dozens of projects, right, we have a portal on our side, the city has a portal on their side, how to both communicate with one another without just sending emails back and forth. We developed a portal called Fund Flow that helps with that loan and grant portal management that your finance team, your public works team, right, has access to, our team has access to, and we're able to share and add efficiencies around where things are, where reimbursements are, disbursements are, when invoices are getting uploaded. So it's a system that allows the two to talk to one another very seamlessly without a lot of conference calls and scheduled meetings with a lot of people that are inefficient.
A couple items on that slide I want to point to is good timing with Chris Williams coming on as the city CFO and changes with the finance team. The fact that we already have Fund Flow as a portal, and why is that a big deal? Because it's complicated. These construction projects have a lot of requirements and complications, and we have so many overlays of, well, there's a loan agreement, there's a grant agreement, this one follows these rules, this one is under these rules. So we're doing a training session for Chris and his team to get them up to speed on how to use this tool, which helps your entire Groveland team better manage the financial resources. The other thing that's extremely important, I'll point out, We're planning for a $330 million capital plan, but the city of Groveland has not financially obligated to that dollar amount even close. So when I say planning for, I'm planning for those 20,000 homes that the mayor mentions that the comp plan could ultimately allow. Those homes are not being built the next 5 years, the next 10 years. That's a 20-year plus plan. So we're planning for 20 plus years, we're planning for the next generation, but we're certainly not asking you to commit to $330 million today. I want to make sure that's clear, because those numbers can scare the public, and that's not the intent, is to show you we are thinking long-term, but in reality, since I've been involved, and the mayor has heard me say this at a previous meeting, the utilities enterprise fund, leaving past debt service behind, since I've been here 7 years, the borrow has only been 62 million. And then there's been more than that, 65, that are in grants. So I want to point that out. We're not spending $330 million today. Over the next 20 plus years, that's a decision the city councils of the future will have to decide.
So I'll leave you with fiscal solutions. TJ mentioned it already, but here's a list. This is an exact list up to date that Woodard and Curran, the partnership, has helped the city secure. This total here of these 13 different programs constitutes $64 million in grant money that the Woodard and Curran team, in conjunction with the city, has brought to the city to benefit its rate base, right? And the goal of this, right, is to lower the impact of these significant capital improvements on the ratepayers. You could see, TJ mentioned there's a $24 million water treatment facility on here. There's $20 million dedicated towards your wastewater system. Those are 2 grants. There's $8 million dedicated to your construction loan at the Sampe facility. These are very large impacts, and our fiscal team is dedicated to continuing to submit applications on your behalf for future to whittle down, right, the future debt that the city is looking at possibly taking on, right? That lowers the impact on the rate base. So I say that because I think it's important that we do pause on that at $64 million, right? That's more collectively than the city has paid Woodard and Curran in 7 years of both operating the facility as well as performing, the 85 consulting tasks for the city. So again, in our opinion, the partnership is great, it's fruitful, and it's continued to grow. So again, I'll leave you with a couple things. I know we want to get into more concurrency stuff. But from a water system, right, we help you plan, design, administer, and perform construction and admin of your project so that you can focus on other things, right? Community enhancement, right? We develop creative multi-benefit projects to improve infrastructure resiliency, strengthen assets. And then from a funding perspective, right, we bring in grants and alternative financing that lowers the impact on the ratepayers. And lastly, our operations and maintenance team, which again is what you guys see and feel all day, every day, right? We take the worry out of staffing and maintaining your critical assets so you can focus on other things that you do better. So with that, just in summary, I'm Justin DeMello, or I'm a vice president, and I'm the principal in charge of the Groveland account. I operate with influence without authority, right? The O&M team operates independently. The consulting team operates independently. Rich Niles, the program leader, he oversees all of those different 85 task orders from a consulting side. Ben Von Hars, right, he's your day-to-day operations staff. And Tammy Ray Ross, who's not here, she's our Fiscal Solutions National Director that oversees your fiscal program. If any of these individuals aren't getting you what you need, right, that's when TJ can come to me and say, Justin, I need help, I need support. So I operate at this level, at TJ's level, and then I've got a team of people with dozens of engineers and support staff that execute all day, every day on your behalf. So with that, I'll pause here. If you have questions on who Woodard and Curran is, anything that I've just presented, I'm happy to answer those before we pivot into concurrency.
Mr. Jaycox, do you have any questions? Steve, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
I do. Justin, I think I heard you say that don't know what the fixed fee is until the beginning of the year.
Till the end of the year.
Till the...
So fixed fee is based on your budget. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Right. But what I want to know is, can you tell me what the fixed fee looked like for the fiscal year 2025.
Yes.
Can you give me that number?
Right now, like what,
Yeah, do you have it?
do I have it? Yes, we have a fixed fee for past years, yes.
Okay, can you give me a couple? I'd like to know what the fixed fee looks like.
Yeah, I'm happy to give you those. We have, 7-year history of fixed fees, that have been defined, right? Each year you close the budget, that was a year, right? Next year you open a new budget, right? You go through the process, right? You add the fee, right? Then we've got that. But yeah, I can give you those. I just don't have them available right now in this moment.
Okay.
And
'Cause I think,
I can add a ballpark. Their budget for this past year was about 5.3 million. I'm doing this from memory. That would equate to less than a $300,000 fixed fee for the whole year. So 5%.
okay. That's
Hey,
it.
Justin, while we're on the topic, Mr. Mayor, if I may, can you just give higher overview in terms of how that fee is calculated?
How the fee is
So
calculated?
say, if we had the 5 million rate for operations and the fixed rate last year was about 300,000, just from a high level overview, what's the calculation look like for that 300,000?
The fixed fee is set, that's just profit, right? That's just a standard rate that we say, all right, after our costs, right?
Right.
The cost of staff, right? The cost of insurance, the cost of benefits, the cost of, chemical, right? Other things that are required to operate the water and wastewater facilities. We add a fee, right, on top of that to say, this is our fee, right? That was agreed upon in the original contract, and again, that is a fixed fee that's defined that just covers, after all of our expenses, right? This is what gets added on to the top of it, right?
And we only pay, as a city, what is attached to the actual invoice costs. So we start off with the premise of, I'll use the 5.3 million again. You start off with that as the budget for the year. The invoicing takes that number, divides it by 12. But if we stay under budget like we currently are, there is a true up at the end. And you only are paying Woodard and Curran for what actually runs through Woodard and Curran. That is the reason why your overall operations fund, in the enterprise fund, Fund 400, it has just one line item that says contractual services. That's Woodard and Curran. Then you're going to see all these other line items that do not go through Woodard and Curran, like electricity, like vehicle purchases, like debt service, like reserve requirements. So just understand that what's being managed is how can we minimize the fiscal impacts on the city by paying them the 5% that the contract requires, but making sure what we're running through them makes sense for the city. I don't want to be paying 5% on electricity when we can just pay it ourselves and avoid the 5%, and that's what we do.
Is it safe to say that the fixed fee is approximately 5%?
It's defined in the contract.
Fixed,
Yeah.
like it's 5% on anything that's ran through them, per the contract that started in 2019.
The other contracting mechanism that a lot of O&M providers do is what you'd call lump sum, right? Which is kind of a black box, right? We don't like to operate that way because it provides an opportunity for us to provide a lower level of service, right, in exchange for more profitability. When we do cost plus fixed fee, you see our costs, right? When an emergency happens or a lightning strike happens, right, we call TJ and say, do you want us to respond? He says, well, of course I want you to respond, right? The city's out of water, right? We go, we respond, right? That adds a cost, right? And then we add a fixed fee, right? If it's lump sum and we say, hey, we'll take care of everything you got, no matter what happens in the city, and we'll charge you $8 million for it, right? You have no idea what happens in that black box, right? You just pay us the $8 million at the end of the year, right? It might cost us $10 million, it might cost us $5 million, but you pay a fixed fee. This one is kind of a little bit more of shared responsibility, right? And defining a level of service that the city wants to provide to its residents, because they see the actual number of labor, manpower, hours that are on site, right? For example, when we're down at 21 staff, right, you only pay for those 21 staff, right? If it was lump sum, you would have paid us a fixed fee regardless of how many staff
Right.
are on site. So we like this relationship better because it's more open and transparent.
Transparent.
And I just have one more question. The 7 people that you are down,
Yeah.
are they like the maintenance crew, or what does that look like?
We're hiring for an operator, for example. That's a consistent need since we have so many facilities. You know, we have 5 water treatment plants and 2 wastewater plants, 2 reclaim plants. But a lot of it is field, like a maintenance technician, field technicians. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a few, and we don't have to answer these questions today because we want to get on to capacities, but I guess what you're saying is there's a 5% upcharge, really, on everything, right?
That's
Is that, and the 5%, does that go towards staff, management staff? Is that beyond? Are we paying 5% on the labor for the executive group there?
No.
Okay,
No,
so that comes out of the 300,000 that we pay your salary and all that comes out of that? Okay, just for down the road, I'd like to understand what the $175,000 to move, what was it, lines or something for FDOT on Highway 50? Why FDOT? And we've got $175,000 in there to move utilities on there. Everything else, I think that this whole discussion on Woodard and Kern needs to happen at a time when we can really get into it and answer really specific questions on that. What is the total charge to the city for Woodard and Kern? It's 5 point something for the wastewater
5.4 in
treatment.
O&M, and the task orders vary, you know, every year based on the need, but at
Yeah,
80
no, total charge, your consulting and everything, what's the total bill to the city?
Well, in the last 7 years, we calculated we have ran $49 million over a 7-year period. That's why we wanted you to hear $49 million paid to that company for everything. But then they've also helped us bring in $65
I appreciate
million.
over the past 7 years, but I'm right now, is it 11 million? Is it 10 million? What is it right now?
I think the question is you need to define, you know, a year or a task where we operate, right, in annual years, right? You know, every calendar year is what we say we did with Groveland, right? But some of those task orders are 30-month task orders, right? So there'll be 3 budget cycles. So if you were to define, like TJ said, 7 million is the average, right, over the course of the relationship. But this year, it's probably closer to 8.
In fact, I will say I gave Mr. Maslow a report of all the open task orders, including O&M, and it was really close. They were $8 to $9 million down.
So then what I'm saying, what you're saying, just to make it clear, is that 5.5 million is for management.
O&M.
And consultant is only costing us 2.5 million this year.
That's right.
As far as scale,
Yep.
yeah, you're accurate ballpark.
Yep.
We can give you very specific, down to the penny numbers, but yes, you were correct.
Okay. All right, let's just move on to get to the meat of the
Okay,
subject
we
here.
will end this presentation, and we will begin the capacity management, concurrency management presentations. And Rich is going to assist on this one. We're going to let him kick it off, getting into how we are managing. And I will jump in, as you know I do, to help further clarify some of the slides along the way.
All right, well, we both know that I can talk as much as TJ, but if he's not at the table, it'll go a little faster, right? So we're going to talk about kind of overview of developments and projections, kind of what do we have for latest numbers, and those projections for future capacity needs. We'll go through drinking water first. We'll just refresh on the service area, the capacity that you have currently, and the needs that are projected, and do the same for wastewater. So just kind of backing up, starting from a planning level, you know, when we first did master planning back in 2019 to 2021, we developed that plan in 2022 based upon this future land use plan, which has been updated recently but hasn't changed substantially. So there's a lot of entitlements still. And so the green area you see on the outline is your utility service planning area. And then the shaded areas are obviously city limits. And so when we look at utility planning, we need to plan ahead, several years ahead, because growth happens at unpredictable paces, and we, in utility planning, look at reasonable expectations for 5, 10, and 20-year increments. Because when you build a wastewater plant, it takes 5 years to design and then construct that plant before it's operable. So kind of on the planning timeframe, we have to look at those projections, and we're constantly updating those. So since the master plan was developed in 2022, we've done this every 6 to 12 months, where we look at the track and trajectory of developments and what's newly approved, the timing of that, and we, as much as we can, use a crystal ball to project that. So just looking at your residential entitlements, and so this is all based upon what's already been approved and through the planning department, the comp plan, and the different types of community areas, so the zoning density. So currently, there's 22,346 units approved for development. And if you factor in some of the reduction to the Bright Hill plan, that's a pretty substantial development north of the Turnpike. It's actually about 19,764, but I don't think that's officially been approved yet. Is that correct, Tim? It hasn't been incorporated.
There's actually a reduction with the Bright Hill.
Yeah,
That might not be factored into this. We're looking at about half the residential units.
So it's 22,000 was the last February update, and I spoke with Alan the last couple of days, and 19,000 is correcting for the Bright Hill reduction, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. So I just wanted to outline that we are tracking this in real time as much as possible. Anything you want to add, TJ? You good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this table is not easy to read. It's obviously very small, but what you have in sort of the green, I'll keep referring to green, and then a pale yellow, and then an orange or a slightly dimmed red in the next slides. And so what we're showing here are existing commitments. So these are existing development agreements that are in place where concurrency has been determined, and they're in construction, or at least most of them are in construction. So over the next 10 years, we're projecting about 3,700 ERUs to be built. So I know there's been a lot of discussion around the pace of development slowing down, and that we haven't seen as many occupancy permits requested or obtained in recent years, but a lot of this development was approved several years ago. And so as it builds out, there's a timeline for that really doesn't stop unless those developers choose to, or they can't sell homes. Right? So we still have to encumber that capacity for those existing approved lots. And based upon the level of service numbers that have been updated in the comp plan, that's how we project available capacity. So in a lot of these developments, we have consulted with some of the larger developers like Trinity Lakes, who have a few hundred or more units remaining to be built, and try to get a better estimate of their timeline for construction. And so I think you see there's several hundred units per year anticipated to be built in the first few years here, so 26, 27, 28. And then it does taper off, and that's because these developments will be built out over the next 5 to 6 years substantially, and so that development tapers off. But what we'll see in subsequent slides is that there's still additional developments that are pending approvals because capacity is not available.
Just help me out. I see 4. Where's the rest of the 22,000?
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's the next slide. So
So this is just existing commitments that are approved, that have concurrency, and that are utilizing your capacity for drinking water and wastewater. So we'll go through developments, and then we'll go through each of the capacity and the need associated with each utility.
And let me emphasize a couple things. The law, the statutory requirements. If you've approved things to be built, you have to have the facilities available. This green table, everything's approved. I was shocked and chagrined when I came to Groveland that the city had approved Trinity Lakes at 1,153 homes with a sewer force main to the Sampe plant. Why was I shocked and chagrined? Because the Sampe plant was already at 80% capacity. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. So we have absolutely sophisticated since then, and that's why we now have a sewer force main built in partnership with the developer Hanover that leads from Trinity Lakes to the Sunshine Plant. And we will soon, by the end of the year, take those flows and take the pressure off the southern plant. That was a very creative, expedited capacity management program. And the fact that there are still more than half the homes yet to be built, it's significant. That's what's driving this. So we're going to get into what is already in motion. We're going to get into the next slide, which is what is annexed and entitled, but they have it, and I use this phrase on purpose because it's part of the law. Till they come in to pick the fruit, which means an approval of a preliminary plat, a development agreement, construction plans, they haven't picked the fruit yet. Everything in green, that fruit is picked. So that's what's driving the capacity discussion. And again, we're going to talk in just a moment about water and wastewater, and I know for a couple or all of you, you may be really, really interested in the wastewater, but we're going to emphasize we're having to do the same level of planning for drinking water as well. So Rich, if you could take it, sorry, Councilman.
So with the updated numbers, the current number is 19,764 with the Bright Hill reduction. We know about 3,668 that are already through some type of planning and approvals. So now the next slide, we're going to talk about the remaining 16,000.
Yes, yes. And one more thing as we jump to the next slide is please note at the very bottom of that list, I've been listening and I understand on the green.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We made sure that we have reserved capacity for the unexpected investments that are non-residential that may come into the US 27 corridor or the Commerce Park. So we're still managing that sunshine plant to not
Of the
give-
business,
What's that?
of the businesses and different.
Right, the things that are not residential, all of that list is residential except for just a couple of items. Avalon at O'Brien Road is where the Wawa and some other things are going to go. And then we've reserved capacity for the US 27 corridor. So I wanted to emphasize that we built that into committed today before we show you what's coming tomorrow.
Yeah, just for continuity, TJ, on the previous slide is 19,300, and you don't have the 400 and some odd homes that have been reduced by Avalon, but you do have it on the slide we just looked at.
Yes.
You're down to 93, so
Okay.
if you're going to use it on one, use it on the other, so that takes that significantly down more.
Yeah, we
You're
can
saying the
just-
19,000 reduce the 400.
430, I think, more that
Okay.
we've taken out of the equation, so just so they match up.
Yep,
And
and what-
something to consider too is you're including those non-residential uses, those are going to equate to other ERUs essentially. So say if we did hospitality or more commercial or medical, it doesn't mean that it don't count necessarily.
going
They're just
away.
not built into the
The
spreadsheet.
residential's going away, but the ERUs are going to be used for something else.
Right, they'll essentially be exchanged for other uses. But we have to plan for that capacity.
Yeah.
But I would just caution not to put the Avalon thing in here yet, because we
Right,
just got
it's-
the framework, and it might.
We got the brief memo.
We're negotiating that, and I'd hate to have it in writing.
It's preliminary.
Yeah.
Correct.
So one of the, I think, I'd probably just hold off on that just a
Oops,
second.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, we put in here what is on the books. So there is a development agreement on the books for Avalon that is 93 residential units and some commercial. So we've accounted for that, but again, this is something that is managed and updated all the
I
time.
haven't seen. So we've gotten it updated then.
Well, yeah, because ours is 530 units, is what they were approved for.
They've submitted something.
And you have to remember too, that they never necessarily received a permit or an approved site plan or building permits. They're going off of zoning allowances. And in that case, there are other properties that aren't on this list necessarily that do have zoning to do residential units or commercial. But the purpose, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, is really what's in the pipeline for the next few years in terms of
right.
development activity.
Yeah, we'll clarify that one. I think that's one that we plugged in here. We didn't mean to take it
Because I don't
too
think we've received an updated plan that reduces from 400 units or whatever to
535.
535 to 90.
When it becomes real,
An incentive, and it could potentially develop, right, in the next few years, but it's just not permitted necessarily.
If they're not approved but for 93 right now, that makes the negotiations a little bit different.
Yeah, so we'll update the numbers to reflect that change for that development.
where the change
certainly.
becomes
Yeah.
effective.
But that's not something we're anticipating for the next 2 or 3 years at least in the timeline. So again, this just to highlight some of the larger developments here, I mean, so you have actually 4,800 units approved and you have 3,668 remaining to be constructed. So that's essentially, over the next 5 years through 2030, is about 80% of those units are anticipated to be built, and then it tapers off thereafter. So some of those large developments are Cypress Reserve, Cypress Bluff, in construction. Trinity Lakes actually still has 415 units remaining to be built. So it's about 2/3 of the way through that development. So
And
there's still,
when you look at these columns, I want you to think about what your staff and your team is doing. We're taking what the commitments are, and we're acknowledging reality. You can't build all these homes at one time or even in 1 year, and we actively engage the builders to discuss with them their updated pro formas of absorption rates for every year, and we project that out, that reasonably, this is how long it's going to take for them to build these homes, this is how much time we have to plan for that capacity. Very important to connect the dots.
And that's at 500 a year, right? It goes with a concurrency
That was really our
plan?
peak for the last 5-6 years or so, is about 500. We had a year, I think we're high around 600. This year, we're on pace for only 275, so we're close to half of what that peak was. But yeah, to TJ's point, part of our process is looking at that history, looking at the current year, and then looking at the plats that are in the process, and then getting some feelers out from developers in terms of how many houses they expect to start during the year on a monthly basis.
okay, so again, this is over 10 years, in which most of these developments will be built out over those 10 years substantially. Sorry, did you have?
Yeah, can you explain the prepaid impact fee?
Yeah, so the way this works per the code is you cannot provide the city a prepayment without a development agreement that says and without approval of the ability to construct. So we're not selling capacity to maybes or when you're preliminary platting your possible project. It's got to be the agreement confirms that we're going to allow you to prepay it. And then if you're submitting for construction, that's when we make a final concurrency determination that yes, we'll accept your construction plans because we've determined we have enough capacity to serve what you're submitting. And therefore, that has led to the prepayment. So for example, I understand that there was a check that the city was supposed to receive yesterday for $7.5 million in prepayments of water and sewer impact fees. That's your Bright Hill Phase 1. That was required in their development agreement. Separately, down at the end of Max Hooks Road, Cypress Reserve, the developer has now built the lots, the infrastructure. Now builders are coming in to buy up those lots. And we're saying not one house will be permitted to any one of those builders till you prepay all of your wastewater impact fees per that agreement. So these are the things that we're putting in place to protect the city and to improve our cash flow position to collect those funds. And then even if they prepay, and it's 4 years before they pull that permit, they got to pay the delta of whatever the new impact fee amount is because the city has indexed wastewater and water impact fees per consumer price index. So every October 1st, our impact fees automatically go up. So we've got a pretty good system, I think, in place for existing capacity. There's a whole other process for that future capacity that we'll tell you about at the end of this presentation.
Okay, so what is the per unit impact fee?
Right now, it's about $10,600 today, but it will go up 3.4% on October 1st.
That's
That's just
wastewater.
wastewater,
It's
right?
wastewater.
Is it 13,800 for the whole
Yeah, but it's
package?
3,800 for water.
Yeah. So the whole impact fee for water is 13,900. I'm very familiar with that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so that's both,
It's both.
wastewater and
Yeah.
drinkable water.
Yeah, and it will go up on both of those, a total of 3.4%
But
October 1st.
I'm glad you brought that up, because apartments are only 7. And I tell you, two-bedroom apartment to me flushes a toilet just as often as a two-bedroom house. And I don't know why they get half price, because our big capital expense is the wastewater treatment plants. And a gallon is a gallon, whether it comes from a apartment or whether it comes from a house. And I really hope that we all take a look at that, because it's just unfair to have two totally different charges there.
Well, we agree
Part of
with
the
you,
study
Mayor.
with Raftel is coming up here pretty soon.
Well, it's twofold. We agree with you. We want to get as much as possible. Raftelis is assisting from their discipline of financial planning But we also are enlisting both our city attorney and a utilities attorney that's very familiar with making sure we can legally do that without challenge.
Okay. And I had a chance to go through my extensive Avalon notes here, and that 93 equates to Phase 1.
Yes.
So they've only got approved Phase 1. This is a 10-year plan, so I don't know how you're going to factor that in, but I guess we just put in Phase 1 rather than all 5 phases.
Right, exactly.
I'd recommend we start looking at the non-residential phase, because that's really the next wave out here. So we're doing a great job in terms of the residential counts. We need to get a better feel for what those
And
ERUs
that's a good
for
example,
the
because
non.
each one of those phases has about 8,500 square feet of commercial,
Right.
right?
You know what's tricky about commercial? We don't know what it is till we know what it is. If it's retail, not much impact. If it's a restaurant, quick service, or full service, big deal. If it's a hotel, big deal. So until we know for sure, we estimate the best we can. For example, up on 27, what's a 100,000 square foot shopping center? And we know it's going to be a mix. So we use other shopping centers to say, we think it's about 50 equivalent residential units, for example.
In their original, I don't want to get off on that, but in their, they say what they're going to have down there. You know, auto parts store, a urgent care, they have the things mapped out, so. But I just want to put that in and just
TJ?
Good point.
Based on your chart, you have about 1,100 homes that's prepaid. So that's like $14 million and change. Where's that $14 million?
So some of that, like yesterday, we just received the prepayment for the biggest one, which is Bright Hill. We've received prepayments for Rainwood, for Cypress Bluff, and we will sometime in fiscal year '27 receive wastewater only for 405 units in Cypress Reserve. And then the other lots will come later. So it's all in motion. And we're not, right now, the impact fee fund, we have not posted the Bright Hill check yet, but that should bolster our impact fee fund. And Chris is behind me, but I'm going to say from the numbers I just looked at, we should have a little over $9 million with that check just in the wastewater impact fee fund, cash in hand.
Can I do a commercial here? Because we need support. And the city manager, Dan Anderson, and our lobbyist are trying to get the law reinterpreted so we don't have to take all that money and give it at one time. So you have to apply the whole upfront impact fee. So just think of 104 million, 9 million against it isn't that beneficial. If you could save half of it back, so in case the building go down 1 year, so we don't have any emergency backup. They make it all applied up front. So when we go to Tallahassee this year, that's one of the things that you'll sit in front of different people and say, hey, we need a reinterpretation of this law so we can hold some in reserve in case we have a downturn, rather than just apply it all at once.
Essentially a debt service reserve fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mayor, some good news, because when you made that point, we went back and started digging for how we're structuring things moving forward. There is no question we have legal standing that the impact fees can be used for debt service. So we're making progress, but there are some past decisions where that applies, just like you said.
Not a new law, but just a reinterpretation is all we're looking for, yeah.
So what you're saying is the impact fees have to be put on the books in the year that they're received, but they're in some account waiting for the development to
We haven't
actually
taken out
happen.
the loan yet, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we can't apply it to the loan immediately because it hadn't been taken out.
Okay.
All right, moving to the future.
All right, so just frame of reference, so that 3,668 ERUs, if you use your concurrency value of 250 gallons per ERU, it's about 917,000 gallons per day. So think of this existing development that's already been approved in construction that has a timeline of the next 5 to 10 years to build out, is going to eat up almost 1 million gallons per day capacity.
That's equal to your current Sunshine plant today, which is permitted for .990, right under 1 million.
So we'll see the numbers shake out as we go through each of these.
So you're going to show us how
Yep.
they average the multiple.
We'll see how it all adds up
Okay,
and yeah. And then that speaks to the capacity need, the delta. So this is looking at, I changed it on my computer, but not on the screen. Sorry about that. So this is a list of pending development. So this is the remainder of Bright Hill, Phase 2B, 2C, the original Peach Trees 1 through 3 phases, Bright Hill West, Phase 3, There's about 2,500 remaining units with Bright Hill. Now, there's no concurrency, there's no capacity available. So for the next 5 years, we're showing on the chart here, that big red box, is that nothing is approved, nothing can be approved, there's no capacity available. And that's based upon the projections I'll show you later on for wastewater.
Is there a difference between the 366.8 and the last, was that ERUs in the last or units? ERUs there over
Yes.
10 years, and then that slide has 5 years, right? Go to the next slide.
Yes.
And it's 40, you know, it seems like it jumped up quite a bit, and that's only 4 years right there.
Correct. Yeah, so there's no, what we're saying is you don't have capacity available until 2031 for wastewater, assuming you build the new plant. So none of this can be approved for development unless there's more wastewater capacity. But if you were to approve it, capacity would be available in 2031. So I'm just looking at the same 10-year time frame. The construction wouldn't be able to start for 5 years for these developments. So I'm looking at a 5-year period of 2031 to 2035.
So legally, it's been very important to your staff to not ever say the phrase, "We don't have capacity for you." What we are saying is, we are in the process, based on the utility master plan, of moving forward into design of the facility that will ultimately serve you.
Yeah, I'm a much simpler mind. I'm not getting it. We say that from right now, 2026 through 2036, 10 years, we got 3,668 ERUs needed. That was your last slide.
Yes.
Here we say we have 4,026 just from 2031 to 2035.
That's correct.
So in 10 years, how do we have 3,668 needed ERUs? But it would have to be at least 4,026 and more, because within that same time period, you've got 4 more years, right, that's not in there. So which is it? Is it 10 years we need 300?
You're getting to the crux, and we're going to come back to this again, but the short answer, Mayor, is that the green is using up the remaining capacity that physically exists. The yellow cannot happen until the new capacity exists.
So it's two different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Old and
same
new.
timeline. It just means that we can't approve anything for another 5 years until there's capacity.
Gotcha.
This is where those infographics, those 2 buckets or plants that we've talked about,
Yep.
eventually we'll get there.
Yes.
So green, allowed to use what we have. Yellow, not allowed to move forward till we have the new.
So in theory, if we were to look at available capacity in 2031, we just looked at an absorption rate thereafter. And Bright Hill is one of the big factors in this. So Bright Hill, remaining developments on this table that have not yet been approved for capacity is about 2,500 units. So Phase 1 and Phase 2A, we think we can give concurrency determination for that with the available capacity. But there's 2,500 units remaining that have not been approved for capacity. So that's a substantial portion of this here. So essentially, over the next 10 years, if pending developments were authorized with available capacity, you're looking at about 8,000 units total.
What does under review mean?
It means it's in the development review process, preliminary plat, possibly, or
It means like.
Site development plan,
Yeah.
final plat, it's still not been final platted, so they can't pull a building permit on any of the lots yet.
So Lake Catherine is under review is,
Lake Catherine, if memory serves me correctly, they had a concept plan, they applied for a preliminary plat. They have the zoning and future land use in place, but they never received a preliminary plat approval. And then after preliminary plat, you still have to go through the majority of the engineering that's done at the site development planning process, and then still final plat. So there's, I would say, 3 applications separating that development between now and building permit.
the same with Waterside then?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're going to do this on purpose. We wanted to show you how we look at water and sewer both, because we're managing concurrency because it's the law. And it's awkward when you're managing concurrency for facilities that are already going to hit capacity. Concurrency works when you're planning for the future capacity. Right now, we're managing what's left. So we're going to take you down this road with water in just a moment. We've got one more slide. And then we're going to really dive in with both feet into wastewater.
So just to recap each step of the way here, so on the prior slide, you had 3,700 roughly remaining to be built, but you had 4,800 approved. So if you go back to that 19,000 of total ERUs, take 19,000, subtract 4,800, and then subtract another 5,800 on this slide, because this is 5,800 total, but only 4,000 over the last 5 years of this 10-year period. So I know I'm trying to help everybody not get confused by it, but your 19,000, this is essentially 10,000 units, 10,600 of that 19,000 so far. With the green slide, the green developments in the prior slide and this slide, you're at 10,000 now. And the next slide will show additional developments within that 19,000.
Yeah, and we'll show you why those extra 10,000 are not going to be happening anytime soon for pragmatic reasons. So, Rich, go ahead.
So we're showing over the same time period again, the last, God, man, I'm confusing myself with my own laptop. Sorry about that. Again, only 2,000 units over this 5-year period in 2031, 2035, once capacity is available, but the total number of units that is captured on this table is 5,775. So we're getting close to that 19,000 number. And now these are developments that are planned. There's no immediate development plan in front of us, but Villa City, for example, was on the prior slide. Phase 1 of Villa City was about 1,900 homes, and the remaining 5,800 homes for Villa City is on this slide. So when we look at the remaining 5,700 homes, a substantial amount of that is Villa City. So that's kind of the big gorilla in the room. There is an existing development agreement for Villa City, but there's no commitment for capacity for anything beyond Phase 1. And then when you see that line item village FLU, that's future land use, that's kind of just aggregate of properties that are that are zoned, and we calculate a number of units based upon that. And this is consistent with the planning department. So we're really just using your own planning department's numbers here. Any questions? All right, we'll keep moving along.
What I don't see on there is Cherry Lake Tree Farm.
It's IMG. That was the way it was actually adopted as a PUD. That was their underlying business name. We all call them Cherry Lake Tree Farm, but that's what IMG is. And at the moment, it's one of those weird ones. It's annexed. We're supposed to plan for it. There's 0 proposals. We want them to stay a tree farm as long as they can be a tree farm.
Yeah, they have the future land use, but the zoning is still ag. I mean, when we do talk about ag preservation, transfer of development rights, that's really a great candidate.
Did it get switched back to ag from future land use? Because it was zoned one way and it was multi.
That would
use.
likely result in several legal conversations.
Well, I mean, it is already, land use is already for homes. It's not ag,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So,
And that's somewhat related to some of the conversations we've been having on why future land use and zoning maps don't always align. Sometimes it's advantageous for a developer or property owner to have potential entitlements in case of the future if they wanted to move in a different direction, say sell off to a builder, where they could have that property appraised for that purpose. But at the meantime, they want the zoning for another different type of operation, say agriculture, right? Either for operations or tax benefits or et cetera. So not always do those maps align. Does that make sense?
yeah, but we give them permission to do that. We changed from agriculture to multifamily, right? Without, just let them do that. I wonder how many of these are, I don't want to speak to them specifically, but there are several people on this list that came to the city and got the future land use changed to get their appraisal up so they can have a higher line of credit to do their business. Not to, you may have homes, a lot of homes on here that will never happen. And I think we need to really have those conversations with those people because we're saying what our capacity issues are based on things that may never come to fruition.
Agreed.
Right. Well, and that's why we look at capacity, and we did this in the original master plan, and we're still looking at it the same way, where we look at facilities in a phased approach. So what's the likelihood of near-term growth? That's that 5 to 10-year period. 20 years out, that's a second phase. You know, that is going to be funded by future developments at that time. Out past 10 years, it gets really fuzzy, and there's no commitment. So we do look at a wastewater plant or the drinking water plant. We look at that in a phased manner so that we can accommodate future growth, but we're not over-investing in too much. So let's move on quickly to the drinking water service area. We'll talk about drinking water capacity now that we've hopefully ironed out some of the questions about development and projections. And so the map on the left you see is the city limits, the city planning area, the utility service area. The blue lines are the water distribution pipes. You can see the service area extends all the way north of the turnpike. Most of that is serving city incorporated land, city limits. Some of it is outside that, Ford Commerce Park, for example, outside that. And on the right, the map is just showing the same network of pipes, and the yellow shaded area is one zone, or kind of pressure zone, based upon the wells and the treatment plant at that location. And so we're just kind of showing how the different systems operate. So managing water is easier than managing wastewater. We can push it around in different places, but we have to maintain pressure and flow. So those are the challenges we have there. And then on the upper left, just to the left of the pink polygon there, is the proposed Villa City plant. And that's under construction now. And so that's going to expand the service area even further and provide a source of supply from the lower aquifer. And I'll get into that in a little bit more.
So hold on a minute, because not everybody in the room or watching online knows how to read a map, and I get that. So let me break this down to realities that you as elected officials and your districts have to deal with. The blue is served by the plants 1 and 2. That means 1 is up here by the ball fields with the tower right here on the hill. 2 is over by my office at Sampy. Those are the 2 older plants. That serves the older part of Groveland, and it serves the neighborhoods along Villa City Road. Then you've got the yellow. This is plant 5 behind Publix. No coincidence that that is the only area affected by that iron plume that ended up in our water back a couple months ago. It was just that one plant behind Publix that had that iron content. And so those neighborhoods along County Road 565, Eagle Point, Cypress Oaks, the Marina Del Rey neighborhood, and east, those were affected because it's served by that plant. We have taken, even though Palisades is a permitted plant, there on Gelarmy Road at Cherry Lake Road, we are not treating water there anymore. We've had water quality issues with those wells. So right now, we're not using that one, and we'll use that as a negotiation later with the state. So that large pink area is currently served by Sunshine up at State Road 19 and US 27. That's a large area. It serves Trinity Lakes as well as every one of those 3,000 homes along Wilson Lake Parkway. So that's why it's so extremely helpful that we have a water treatment plant under construction up there at Villa City Road, because that'll give us redundancy and resiliency. And when that plant is done, as I mentioned to you previously on a grant application request, we want to connect that plant south along Villa City Road to the blue area so that we have a true interconnection of our entire water system. So I hope that helps illustrate what we're doing geographically and how these plants work to support one overall public water system.
CJ, can you explain the problem with the water at Palisades?
Those wells are upper aquifer wells that were permitted a long time ago through a private plant that the city later took over at Palisades. And so when Woodard and Curran and I got involved and we started looking at the cost-benefit ratios of trying to keep treating that location as an actual treatment plant, we realized, well, the wells have value and we have the piping infrastructure through there, but we don't want to keep spending money on operating a plant there when we can use yellow number 5 and pink number 3 to serve that area. So I hope that helps. It's still technically a plant until it's not under DEP, but we're not staffing it, we're not treating, we're just letting the water flow through there between the other plants.
Is the distance between the wells and the, say, Trilogy, or I think Sunrise is the big one that I've been hearing about, the water pressure problem? That we're traveling too far? Because there's some people that say that they turn on their faucet, they can't take a shower.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, what I don't like doing, I've asked our guys to be mindful of, is regulatory, we have to provide a minimum of 25 PSI. Well, if you're turning on your shower and it's 25 PSI, pressure's not good. So we don't like telling people, well, legally, that's what we're required to give you. We know that we've got a unique terrain issue along Wilson Lake Parkway. And you mentioned a couple neighborhoods. The worst right now are the newer Hidden Ridge and Meadow Point that are just west of Fire Station 2 and west of our Cherry Lake Park. Because it's the end of the line on the water system, because it's a dead end out there, and because you've got up and down terrain with these sand dunes, pressures are not optimal. So that's why we're looking at, and this is Councilmember Jay Cox's district, so I've talked to him directly, we're looking at an elevated storage tank as a way to boost pressures, and we're also looking at an interim solution of literally boosting through a booster to up those pressures.
I think it's wider than that, TJ, and we're going to run out of time, but Sunrise is over on Villa City Road.
Same
And
issue.
that's a whole different thing, and
It's
I've
my
had
community.
3 or 4 people call about pressure
It's my
there.
community. It's if you turn on, especially some of the homes, if you turn on one faucet, it is hard to take a shower. So it is something that's affecting Villa City Road also.
And so for the councilman's neighborhood, he's at Sunrise, and then just north of there is Preserve, and then north of there is Cypress Bluff, and the pressure issues are getting worse as you get to the end of the line. That's why I'm excited that we filed the grant opportunity with your permission to connect the new Villa City plant down to those neighborhoods, so you've got water pressures from both directions.
I would hope we'd fix it before then.
We'd
Because
love
people
to.
are paying, we don't give them a discount because their water doesn't work versus other people. We need to not say, wait for 2 years. We need to figure out how to fix that pressure problem now.
Well, luckily, your team, all of us, just heard you, and we will.
Yeah, so we did incorporate some planning and design and construction into the 10-year CIP, and we put that in the beginning of the plan. So based upon this information. Now, bear in mind, some of these developments were designed before a master plan existed, before a hydraulic model for the city's system existed. So engineers are estimating pressures, or they're getting readings in the street. And then when you tie all these together, well, it affects the performance of the system.
Yeah.
And so we understood that, but the Hidden Ridge issue, I think, is a design issue at this point.
Yeah, all I want is to have a timeline that we can get this
Yeah.
fixed, because it's becoming a major issue, and prices keep going up on water, and we've got to get everybody the service right, you know? I mean, we've got to. So maybe we can get a timeline on that to the council?
Yeah, TJ, let's start entering that into Reich and add a project management Gantt chart for the council to start sharing with, and we could send a direct link for you all to start following
And we're in
along with that.
budgeting right now. I mean, this isn't something that I think we need to say it's going to happen next year and the following year. We got to fix it.
Yeah,
you
if
know?
we're looking at a 5 to 10 year CIP with utilities, this is likely a 1-year candidate, first year,
For
So-
3 months,
and
or
I'm
2
gonna-
months.
early first year.
And Mayor, I'm going to tie this to our realities that we all have to deal with. Can we fix it? Yes. And will we take all due diligence to do so? Just understand, there will be fiscal impact. I know you all understand that. And so we've got a lot of competing priorities on not the wish list, but the backlog of critical priorities that are still not funded that have to come out of your operations fund. So we'll come back with you with solutions.
Well, maybe we ought to have input on that critical list, because before we build a new plant, we should make sure all the other things are working.
Yes, sir, you
know
get
what I'm
full
saying?
input.
I mean, we've had this conversation so
Yep.
many times, you know, we look way down and we're not taking care of what's now. We've got to get this, maybe that list of priorities needs to be shared, because.
We got to take care of the existing footprint before expansion.
Now, TJ, we got like $5 million sitting in a surplus fund, and that's what it should be used for.
Well, for part of what we're talking about, I think that if we're boosting pressures because of growth, we've got a robust impact fee fund that we can immediately pull from once we determine engineering, what's going to work. Because we already were looking at your district because of and this is potable, this is not reclaim, this is potable. But the fact that we have the same issues in Councilmember Shakowski's neighborhood and that whole corridor, we'll handle both of those simultaneously.
I'm guessing it's just going to continue getting worse. As you go up, it gets worse. I only know what the folks that are currently living there are experiencing. There are going to be new people coming in from the houses that are being built. What's the immediate solution?
Well, a couple things we can look at is, you know, to go through with the long-term, which is an elevated storage tank over by the park, that will take a little time because you got to design it, you got to get it permitted, you got to build it. If we could do something more immediate, and one of the options that we're going to look at because of the location of these homes relative to Mascot system is right across Villa City Road. Is would the city benefit from an interconnect to boost pressures? And what would that mean with Mascot? That could be some low-hanging fruit that would give us some relief now while we plan for the future.
How will you let the constituents know in the impacted areas that we hear you and we're working on it? What methodology, what communication will you use for them to know that it just didn't fall on deaf ears, but we're working on it?
So first step is we're evaluating of what is the solution we're going to enact with your permission. Then we know the specific neighborhoods impacted, and to me, it's a communications issue. Mr. Jones is behind me. I believe he's still back there. And we would want to communicate resident to resident, mailing a letter, putting it on social media, make it clear, we've heard you, we're working on the fix.
Maybe, Mr. City Manager, we have paid for 4 surveys this year from the Blue something group, like we did 1 so far. And they can break it down by where each of the people come from. You know, they know by I don't know.
Council district, perhaps?
And then you could ask something about the water, make the next one about water and ask what is, and you could do a heat map based on what the actual impact is from those surveys.
Well, we also have data. They can pull pressure data, and we can map out, here's where we see it start dropping, and share that with you, share it with these are the areas we're targeting.
Maybe
Yeah.
looking at both data and community needs.
Yeah.
to
I think
serve.
we do both, but I'd love to see the map with the,
Okay, and Ben just heard that, Ben and Trevor heard it. They can pull pressures, we can put it all into a map, and there's your heat map.
Yeah, we did just recently update the drinking water system maps. We refined the details with valves and fittings and various things, added the new developments since the original mapping was done in 2021. So we do have an updated system, and we can update the hydraulic analysis of that. But I think getting pressure readings will give us that quick indication of it.
Are we talking drinking water now? Or are we going to still go, we're talking drinking water now?
Yes, sir.
Well, put that as second. Really put it on first.
Yeah.
We need to have a high-quality drinking water. We do not. People are spending $6,000 to get filters in their house because we don't take enough iron out. And when I'm looking for this thing from the government that says where we rank in the water quality issue around, but for going from district to district, I mean, you can't even drink the water down at the sushi place, you know, you can smell it. That's out of this yellow area, and other ones, we've got to get it fixed. I mean, and we take the water out of the ground where Niagara takes it out of the ground, you know, and we need to have high quality water. And that's not a privilege. That's the right of every citizen to.
As we
Fundamental
continue,
service.
well, as we continue to make improvements, we're already looking at filtrations. Filtration's not a requirement of the state, but can it be a desire of the city? Sure. And we're going to come back to you with, here's how much this costs, and here's what we think the benefit is. Niagara, they invested in a reverse osmosis system. We're going to bring that option before you too, because that will really clean up the water quality.
I think there's a lot of new options out there that I'm hearing about that may be even different than that. But
Sure.
people expect when they turn on the water that it's not going to smell, you know, that because they could dig a well and put the same $6,000 thing on it and not pay us, you know. So let's water quality is a huge issue
Yes,
in the
sir.
city.
Yeah, there's a lot of new technologies out there that we're beginning to vet and would incur, we're expecting a task order from them to look at a few different scenarios and alternatives. Again, a menu, here are some ideas, here are some potential costs, allowing council to give direction in terms of which route do we want to go. Is it a series of these, or is it one of these options that we want to explore? But I would agree, that's a fundamental service we provide.
TJ, based on what the mayor had said about as far as communication, we need to sit there and get those pressure maps out to the public and say, okay, we've identified where the pressure problems are. And then we're going to get back to you in X amount of days to tell you what we can do to fix it. And then we're going to tell you that we brought it to the council. I mean, we really need to keep ahead of this so they know we're working on it. You know, it's not going to be an instant fix, but we're going to try to do what we can as soon as we can.
Yes, sir. So
We
today,
recognize the problem.
Yes,
So many people don't even think we recognize the problem, and we start getting calls and go and see, yeah, there's a problem there. I can show you
we will
videos.
follow that. Just allow us to take those sequence of events, let us produce the data for you quickly, show you the heat map, show you some options, inform the public.
The deeper issue here, Mr. City Manager, is we all know these complaints are coming in. I mean, I'm getting more now than ever, but how does that get to there so we're not having to say, go do this? Somebody's got to come up with a solution based on the complaints that the city gets and take action on the solution. They shouldn't wait for city council. They should be coming to us and saying, this is what we need to do in order to complete this service. And so there's really something missing in the whole stream to where we can get ahead of things and not react to
Transitioning from
them.
reactive to proactive.
Yeah.
Not waiting for the complaint to be made from the public or from the council, but these are just different things that we're seeing on the data. We're aware of that, budgets are tight, but to serve our customers and give fundamental services, these are some potential solutions. So I think the team is transitioning on that.
Mayor, to your point, your team's well aware. We're already well aware of the concerns about the look of the water, the smell of the water. Doesn't matter if the water quality tests are all good, customers are still having their experience. We're well aware of the pressure issues in Councilmember Jaycox's neighborhood, and quite candidly, we're aware of the Villa City Road Councilmember Schakowsky's, but I don't think until today I realize we're going to need to elevate it equally with what we're already doing on the Wilson Lake Parkway. So that's why I brought up, we've had conversations with Mascot about what does an interconnect look like. We're already helping you all on sewer, so how about you help us on water? So that is a new thing that I'll mention today, but all this stuff's already, your team's already in motion on these things.
Yeah, I think the miss is that service is service, and the people are paying the same. And don't wait on us. If you've got this and you've got some kind of way to fix it, come and say, hey, this is the problem, this is the fix, this is what it's going to cost. Because again, I mean, it's everybody's paying the same amount for the water. The good guys are getting good, the bad, but they're paying the same. And
Right.
we've got to get this thing leveled out. It's just got to.
Yeah, your
gotta
staff and
happen.
team agree with you.
Ready? Move on. Okay, so next we want to talk about the capacity of what is permitted for groundwater withdrawal for consumptive use. So you have a permit with St. John's River Water Management District to withdraw a certain amount of gallons per day out of the aquifer, and that is 4.1 million gallons per day. That's your permitted withdrawal. And so what that permit also requires that you shift your use from the upper aquifer to the lower aquifer. And that was intended to be done by 2025. The Lower Florida Aquifer project at Villa City was delayed with construction, with funding, with the contractor, changing the contractor. Because we're in the midst of a permit renewal with DEP, or with the district rather. It's something they understand, and so we're exceeding that upper withdrawal currently, but we're modifying the CUP at the same time to address that, as well as future consumption and future demand. So the Palisades project that I think TJ mentioned earlier was, by decommissioning that, the city was able to increase its allocation to 4.1 MGD. And so the city is always looking at opportunities for management of groundwater resources. So other developments that occur in the future, some of those are in agricultural lands, and they have consumptive use permits currently. And I think Cypress Reserve is one example of that, TJ, right? There's about 0.7 MGD associated with Strack Farms. And so that DA was written in a manner to then take that allocation, so basically decommission it and give the city credit for that. So you're not always having to justify development and an increased withdrawal at a different location. We're sort of taking credit for what's been permitted already in many ways. So consumptive use permits, it's been ongoing for a while. A lot of it kind of relates to what we anticipate for growth and development and what we can justify for reasonable groundwater withdrawal. Now, the graph on the right is showing what we anticipated during the master plan effort, which is kind of similar in line. I want to show the history a little bit of how we looked at groundwater permitting. And we've also, the city's been working to improve conservation measures, to reduce the gallons per capita consumed, reduce outdoor irrigation. All that works in your favor. But back then, we were anticipating by about 2045, somewhere in the 8 million gallon per day withdrawal, which would almost double your withdrawal. Now, we think we're less than that now.
I want to take liberty just for a second about Palisades. Two different issues in Palisades. There was a water treatment plant that we took offline. Only the wellhead is there. That's a city wellhead. Separately, the city bought the golf course and worked with the St. Johns River Water Management District and recorded with the golf course property the retirement of the permitted water rights for the golf course. So two separate well issues, just happens to be the same neighborhood. It was that deal that we made as a city with the state to take the golf course wells offline and retire their permit that moved us from the gray line to the blue line. So that's how we are today allowed with the new plant coming on board next year with the two lower aquifer wells. That's what automatically increased us from 3.3 to 4.1, giving us some breathing room. Meanwhile, your team is 1 year in, coming close to 2, of negotiations with the St. Johns River Water Management District on increasing our consumptive use permit to handle the growth that we showed you earlier. So all of that's underway, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood that Palisades, two different sets of wells. One set of wells, our well field that we own. The other one was golf course wells that we retired, and the state was very happy to make that deal with us.
So during that process of consumptive use permit renewal that TJ mentioned, we started this in 24, 25-ish range, and looking at the data then, so the bar graph on the left shows what was anticipated or projected based upon current trends. And what the data was telling us was that you guys we're projecting excessive withdrawal based upon meter data issues that we were encountering. So part of that was trying to tighten up your water accounting, your water budgeting, and then also incorporating conservation measures that we've seen the effect of. So we have seen conservation be effective in reducing the overall total consumption of water. So this would have put you on a trend of 11 MGD in the same time frame as I mentioned earlier. So, we recognized that was going to be an issue, and we had to tighten up the numbers, which is why this has been an ongoing process. Now, the figure on the right just illustrates, some of the efforts that the city's been doing to look at groundwater modeling with the district to demonstrate that there's no impact to the lakes and the water resources. So you guys have a great scientific approach to consumptive use permitting and groundwater withdrawal, and now we're tightening up the data with new meters, and that's showing that we're getting closer to a reasonable withdrawal that the district will accept. And that's kind of what this complicated graph is showing you here. So that red line, that trend, is showing your projected water use. And we're anticipating by 2040, that's going to be somewhere in the 6.5 MGD range. So less than the 8 that we projected originally. Some of that is due to conservation measures. It's due to the pace of development. The master plan was more aggressive in anticipating growth, so we didn't underestimate capacity. But this is where we think you're going to land. And so we have data, those gray bars on the left are showing your trends of consumption, which sometimes vary a little bit by year. And so as we get better data, we'll be able to refine this projection, finalize your consumptive use permit with the district. And so keep that 6.5 MGD number in your head for a minute as we go into the next slide here, which talks about the Villa City Water Treatment Plant. So the water treatment plant has 2 new low Florida aquifer wells. Those have been constructed, and those have a pump capacity, like they can operate at full capacity and each produce over 2 million gallons per day. So the treatment plant has a full capacity of 4.3 million gallons per day. And remember before, you have to shift your demand to the lower aquifer. So we're now shifting that demand and pulling more out of the lower aquifer once this plant is built. And so just to summarize in the right side of the slide here, about halfway down, current permitted withdrawal. With the treatment plant, you're still going to be at that 4.1 until we modify that permit. So on paper, it says 4.1. We're suggesting to increase that to 6.5, and that new plant can meet that delta, that additional 2 to 3 million gallons per day on top of that.
That's why I said earlier when we talked to the district about water, this is all drinking water, is that sometimes we do have to negotiate like we did with the Palisades well retirement. We're talking about, well, what if we took the rest of the Palisades well field that we own offline since they're upper aquifer wells, and then you give us a higher permit for lower aquifer? What if we take this old plant up on the hill offline, which is an upper aquifer well? So those are the kind of conversations that we're having while we're working toward that renewal that's at the bottom of the right hand of the slide, is we've got 4.1 permitted in hand today. We're working to at least 6.5, and this process is still a year away before we're going to see a permit document from the district at the earliest. So it's a long negotiation.
Right. So think of it in this way. So the numbers right below that graphic, 1 MGD is equivalent to about 3,200 ERUs. So 1 MGD of consumption for water, the pump out of the aquifer, can serve 3,200 homes. That's using your concurrency number of 310 gallons per capita. So if we think of the additional allocation that's going to really be utilized with this new plant can support about 7,700 ERUs at what we think will be the permitted capacity. Now, the pump capacity is higher than that. But if you think of the numbers in the development slides, the green developments that are under construction, plus the pending, this 7,700 would be adequate capacity for those developments. So we think for the next 10 years, even with pending developments, this facility will be able to meet that demand. So you met your capacity for that.
So bottom line, summary, we're feeling pretty good about our drinking water plans. It's all coming together. It's making sense. We got a $25 million grant for a water treatment plant. Feeling really good about that. Now we're going to talk about wastewater.
So the 310 is potable water only, right? 310
Yes.
is per day, per unit.
Yeah, and why is that higher than sewer? Because some of our homes still use potable for irrigation, for better or for worse.
But some of them don't, right?
Some of them don't.
Some of it's recycled, so the
And that's-
average.
That factors that into it in terms of the projections.
Two things hugely to Groveland's benefit is that we have 2 reclaim plants and we have a waterside point where we're using the lake water for irrigation now. That gets us a couple of gold stars with the state when we do these negotiations. Show them the plant site again.
Yeah.
Under construction.
Yeah, so what you see, you're looking kind of northeast, Villa City Road is running across the screen in the background, and then beyond that is US 27, just to orient you to the property. So this site can accommodate a plant double the size. So this is phase 1, which is under construction, fully funded by grant funds, and that's going to supply what we think is going to meet capacity requirements for the existing and near-term developments and shifting demand to the lower aquifer. Now, we can double this if needed in the future. The plant's more easily expandable for drinking water than it is for wastewater.
Let me use this slide just to, because this will come up in a few minutes when we get into wastewater. That's a almost 5-acre site given to the city by the ownership of the Villa City Plan Unit Development Property, 2,500 acres that they own, that they're not, they have a PUD, they have a development agreement, but nobody's made a proposal to develop. That site, as was just said, is expandable to double the capacity of the plant. We're saving that doubling of the plant for anyone that comes in to develop Villa City. That will be one of their responsibilities. Just down the road a mile, south on Villa City Road, is another 25-acre site that we own for the Northern Wastewater Facility, water reclamation facility that we'll talk about in just a few minutes. But since we're looking at where this is, 27 Villa City Road, this is just west of the Commerce Park. So it's also supporting our economic development efforts around our investment in the park.
TJ, before we move off the water, someone had told me that someone did a little bit of math, and they came up with 16% of the people using drinking water are using 50% of the water. That 16% of the customers are using 50% of the water. Is that something you can figure out?
Yeah, now that you said that, yeah, we have the users and the bell curve of what the average is and your outliers. Sounds like we're talking about some outliers. We'll get you that data. That's something we all should know.
Yeah, if you could figure that out for me and stuff like that. When they brought it up to me, I know we have commercial customers like golf courses and things like that. So maybe we can figure out a way of doing something with that.
Yeah, like a Domino's in the Commerce Park, we love them, but they use a lot of water for a cleaning process because they make dough, and so it impacts water and sewer. Niagara, just for the record, not city water that they're bottling. They have their own well, so I want to make sure everybody knows they're not the problem for our drinking water issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the key metrics that the district looks at is your gallons per capita consumed. And so historical data show that your gallons per capita was much higher. With conservation measures and with new development that is tightening that up, that number is going to be met. So you sell water because it's a revenue source. You want to produce and sell water to some extent, and to the point where it doesn't overburden your capacity, right? So, water use is good if it's managed properly and if it's within guidelines. So let's move on to wastewater. We'll talk about the wastewater service area real quick. So on the left, you have the kind of northern part of the city, and the red circle is showing the Sunshine wastewater treatment plant, which is situated between the Turnpike and 27. And on the right, you have the Sampe plant, which is located close to the downtown. So you have these two distinct service areas, north and south, over a pretty large geographic area. And I know TJ has probably explained this before, but there was a recent project to connect those two at Trinity Lakes. So now we have some ability to move wastewater flow between the two plants, primarily with Trinity Lakes development. Now there's some work that's being done at the Sunshine plant to accept that flow. That'll be done later this year. But at some point in the future, we want to be able to manage that both directions. And so part of that plays into how we look at managing capacity in the next few slides between the two plants. And so we have to acknowledge that there are, you guys provide wastewater treatment for the city of Mascot. There's 3 points of connection. There's the Waterstone development at Ville City Road, which is in that map, is the northernmost section. And that little yellow cross you see on the map is the Waterstone connection to the north. And then south of that, you have Villa Pass, and then you have the State Route 50 connection at the city limits with the city of Mascot.
I will suggest to the council and to Mr. Maslow, at some point in the future, as timing allows for workshops, the Mascot agreement from 2013 and how the city team restated that agreement with Mascot's approval to make it better for Groveland, we really want to review that with you in detail. So we'll save that topic to go deeper later, but this point is, we do have an agreement with Mascot for 275,000 gallons a day to treat.
Which is 27% of the capacity of the plant right now in
That is
Sanpete,
correct,
right?
sir.
And does their contribution equal 25% of the cost of that plant?
Between the capital cost of the Sampe plant that they are financially responsible for and the monthly operating cost, right now, the math works in our favor.
I'm just talking the impact. I mean, they're taking up 27% of that plant, and we
Right.
know what that plant costs to get back to where it can be used. I'm not talking about the new one.
Right.
But the asset value, it seems like we've undervalued that agreement quite a bit, and that we're paying for their capital.
Our experience when we read the original 2013 agreement, we said, we think Groveland's been undervalued on this agreement as well. It was a pay-as-you-go agreement. It's been restructured. In fact, you'll see in September a agreement come before you and Mascot of them transferring funds to City of Groveland to pay for their portion of the Sampe plant. So that's happening next month.
Yeah. We're getting ready to build a new plant, and they're taking up a quarter of the capacity for this town. That's a big dollar hit, right? So
Yep.
when you bring that back, let's have what is the true quarter? They should be paying for a quarter of that. They're using a quarter of it.
And we're happy to present that, that is
$25
forthcoming.
million, by the way, for a $104 million plant.
Right.
Well, once the plant's expanded at Sampe, it's 16% of that capacity, that 275.
Still a big impact.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but how long have they been using it, and how long, Well, and again, how much did that cost? What are they giving us a year? What did they give us, $7 million at the beginning?
That's what they're about to transfer to, is
$7 million.
7.8 million, yeah.
What's a quarter of the value of that plant? Even at 16%, what's 16% of the value of both those plants together? It's a heck of a lot more than 7 million, I'll tell you that.
And make sure it's proportionate.
Yeah, that was one more agreement that was inherited by everyone in this room that we shook our heads. Why did they do that? But we're
I think
making it
council
better.
will give you permission to go really take a look at that, because citizens of Groveland don't want to be paying capital for their,
We agree. Yes, sir.
So this is just kind of speaking to that agreement. There's 275,000 gallons of capacity in that agreement. And right now, this is what's under construction. So we see flows increasing at the Sampe plant because of construction in Groveland as well as construction in Mascot. So this is just a summary of the developments that are under construction in Mascot. There's about 555 units that are approved and in construction over the next 5 years. And there's additional, obviously, there's pending development within that. But for planning purposes, we've reserved the full 275 between their existing flows and what's remaining to be built. So we're kind of holding that placeholder there in the capacity reservation for Sampe. And that's what I'm showing on the next, oops.
Back up. So
next slide.
to summarize what Rich just said, the agreement may say 275. We are not receiving 275 at this time. We're getting close to 100, but it's still having the impact that the mayor described.
So this is a summary of the Sampe capacity. So there's currently the plant is flowing at 110% capacity. So it's over capacity for average daily flow permitted. So there's a permitted amount that the plant is designed to accept. It's designed to handle a lot more than that, but that's the permitted design capacity. The expansion project is going to bring it from a 0.99 MGD plant to a 1.67 MGD plant. But we're anticipating, based upon the development projections we reviewed earlier, of what is already committed in construction in that previous table that was all green, we're anticipating by 2028 that we're going to be at 86% capacity again. So the expansion is happening, but development is already occurring. We're 10% over now. And you generally don't want to run your plant more than 80, 90% anyway. And in fact, at 80% is when it triggers regulatory requirement to look at additional facility capacity. So this is something that when we get into the sunshine capacity and we look at the capacity need overall, we're going to be running both of these plants in the next 5 years near 100% capacity again.
This is the only slide I needed to see today, right here.
Yeah.
And just explain to me, we're going to take down, how many houses do we have now? 8,500, 10,000, huh?
About 9,000.
About 9,000 houses. We're going to take down the current plant, which is at 110% capacity at Sampe. We're going to close that down, use the new plant, which is only 0.67, so.
But this is Sampe. You're thinking of Sunshine?
No.
No.
Let me clarify. Just for a brief period of a few months, we're going to shift everything over to the new mirror facility at Sampe while we modernize the old.
But the new one only has 0.67%, right? Because at the end of the day, we were at 1.67 for Sampe.
That's a point of contention I've had, because when we were master planning it, we thought it was a 2 MGD facility. And then DEP said, we're going to permit you for 1.67. So I don't consider that issue completely closed, because, well, how come you're only permitting 2/3 of the fact it's a mirror facility? And part of it is they build it a safety buffer. What if you go over capacity? You've designed it to where it can handle a lot more. So I continue to want to renegotiate that permit amount.
Yeah, because that's a big delta.
Yes.
You know, and I'm looking at, we've got 10,000 or 9,000 houses now. We mirror it, right?
Right.
That should give us how many more houses?
Right.
4,500 more houses,
And I
right,
feel like-
based, right, for that plant, not including the 12% that's going to be, or 14% down the road, or, you know, I'm trying to get to where the true capacity is, not only for building a new plant, but we're holding development back in some areas that we need those funds in, because they're already committed to, we're holding them back because we don't have capacity. Well, if, I'm just doing the math. This is how many houses right now we can, with one, we've got 9.99 and 0.99 right now, right? And we're going to go up to 2.67.
Correct.
But it may be even more than that. Well, it should be a heck of a lot more than I'm seeing in houses, right? I mean, that's a whole nother, more than a third more than the 9,000 now. So what is this whole thing? What is the true capacity issue that we have? What is the true calendar that we need to have based on 500 houses a year? The more we can save up front, the more we got to pay on the back on this stuff. You know, so what is it? You know, if it's more than 0.67, tell us what you're going to, because right now I say to myself, boy, if 0.67 and what we're saying is, we can take that other plant offline and supply everybody right now with 1.67 GDBs, right? And we're going to add another, with this plant, another one on. So that's a
Well,
big thing.
You can't. So this is showing what has already been approved and is going to be built over the next 5 to 7 years. Within this 10-year timeframe, this plant's going to max out again. That's based upon what's flowing there now and what has already been approved. And the same thing happens at Sunshine. So you don't have a 0.67, that's already committed, is what we're trying to say.
Tell me how many units that we get out of this when it's done. Tell me how many units we're going to have when this is done, and not what is approved, but what we can actually do. What can we do? Because if you're going to renegotiate, fine. And if this is a mirror site and it's one instead of, that gives us a whole third more capacity, right? 6.7 versus 1, 0.67 versus 1. And you're going to be using this thing at a 1, not a 6.7 when you close the other one down. You're going to be using it. So what are we doing?
So remember when I showed you the green developments that are already approved? That's almost 1 million gallons in capacity yet to be utilized, yet to be accessed. You don't have that remaining. You barely have that remaining between the two plants once the expansion is done. So you still have a development that's approved that's going to consume almost 1 million gallons that's on the books. That has not happened yet, but it's already approved. That's what we're trying to say, is that you may have a third remaining in capacity, but you've committed that already.
And I don't know, I'm not clear on who we're telling no to, because what we're explaining is,
Right, Hill.
we've approved what we could.
Right, yeah.
Well,
They can't do phase 2.
Right.
I mean,
we've all said it in those meetings.
This is what the data says. So what I took was, these two slides show Sampe capacity and then Sunshine capacity, and the developments at the bottom on the left, those are listing the developments that are approved to flow to each of those plants.
I'm only going by 9,000 houses. 9,000 houses can right now be served by 2.99s. 2.99s. We got a pipe going between them. This 86% is next year, 2 years from now, it's at what, 65% now? And we've got a pipe going between them. So we can fulfill legally 9,000 houses. Now, we're going to up that by another 1 GDP. What I'm hearing now with the mirror is really 1. I mean, that's a pretty significant amount when it comes back online. And I'd really like to know what the actual capacity is with what we have just in the improvement in Sampe and the improvement down, we're adding money to Sunshine, right, with screens and all this stuff. So what is the actual capacity right now
so
when this is done?
As of May, no later than August, it will be official that Sampe is permitted at the 1.67. Sunshine will continue to be, for simplicity, 1 MGD. So that's 2.67 for the whole city. So what I want you to think of is that map. The Palat-Lakaha cuts through the middle of Groveland. There's a north service area that's beholden to the Sunshine plant. There's a south service area beholden to the Sampe plant. Yes, we have this force main, but it's first centered around Trinity Lakes only. What we're working on now is, can we pump even more between the plants? And what we see is, it will be helpful to us to pump extra from the north to Sampe as soon as it's expanded, to buy the city time so that we can get the new plant underway to support the remaining development up north that's annexed, entitled, but not yet ready to build, like Bright Hill Phase 2.
I get you, and maybe you can take me off to the side and beat me over the head about this, but we got 500 houses a year max with your concurrency plan. That's way more than you have on here with 36. Was it 36? We said 5,000 because it's 500 a year for 10 years, right? I just want to know when this has to kick in, and is it 0.67? If we paid for a mirror plant, it's really 1 GDP, and somebody's saying you can't use the 1 GDP, that's something we should be going and lobbying about too, because these things are too expensive to say, oh, we're only going to give you 2/3 of the capacity. I can see 90%, I can see whatever your thing is, but I cannot see the government or anybody else, hey, I can't say the government, we're the government, but anybody telling us that you can build a plant, but you can only use 2/3 of it for your capacity.
And that is why I say I don't feel like we should be done with this issue. Help us understand, DEP, why you're only willing to permit us at this amount when we designed it for this. Just because we're scenario planning. We're telling the council today, both plants, based on what's been approved in the north and what's been approved in the south, are on this course to be well over 90% each, even with the Sampe expansion, by around 2031. So if we're not close to having the new facility, then things do stop, and things get really stressful at that point.
Well, I'm slow, and let's go on, but
Yeah.
1 GDP, 1 million, right? We have 2 million now, and we do 9,000 houses. 1 GDP is 4,500 more houses. Go look at what you said we're going to do in the next, the 36 something, 3688 over the next 5 years or 10 years are already committed. I just want to know how, you go to graphs, tell me where that has to intersect
Rich,
and how many years that has to.
We might be out of sequence with your slide, Chip, but do you have a slide that speaks to that?
That's one of them.
Well, this is one of them. So we're showing 2031 is the deadline. That you're at 96, 98% capacity in both of your facilities. So what if you think of the Sampe plant is running at 110%, so that's about 1.1 MGD, and the expansion project is 1.67. Let's just say that we get it to 2. We can re-permit that facility to be 2 MGD. Once you realize the full capacity of or developments that are planned now, that 96% now becomes about 83% of capacity. So generally, you don't want to run your plants more than 90% capacity anyway. It's more challenging from an operation maintenance perspective. It uses more chemical. It's just more opportunity for upset and compliance issues. So you really want to run your plant around 80-something% anyway. So if we expand it on paper, because we think we've designed it for more, to 2 MGD, you're still going to be running at 80+%.
Yeah, I get
So
that.
you still don't have much room for future development. Now, the Sampe facility is running at about 600,000 gallons per day. The Sunshine facility is around 600,000 gallons per day. This is running at 1.1 million. So you get 1.7 million currently. Now, your future capacity is 2.67. And we showed on the slide earlier with the development for the green, that's about 900,000 gallons of planned development that's already been approved.
That's the math.
That's your 2.67 for all your capacity in the future.
Yeah, you're going to have, I don't want to take us, we only got a half an hour, but 4,500 more houses. We're going to run out of capacity in 4 years. You're saying we're going to have 4,500 more houses in the next 4 years.
Next 5-year iteration,
right?
yeah.
So you just got to show me how to balance that. Right now, you got a 0.99. This is your figures, not mine. 0.99 down there, 0.99 here. You're doing a whole mirror facility. That should be close to 3, not 2.67. I just want to be clear so I can answer questions from our constituents when we go out and say we want to borrow $104 million more. Well, this is what it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. In my mind, I'm dealing with recipes up here. I'm not dealing with wastewater, so you have to make me understand how this math works, because in my mind, it ain't working. We got more capacity now than we're saying we do.
But you have developments under construction that eat up what's left at both plants. That's as simplistic as I can state it. You have a Cypress Reserve that's allowed to build 676 homes at the end of Max Hooks Road. Bright Hill's building 496 units. They're under construction now. When these start getting absorbed, even the new Sampe starts dwindling. Sunshine is destined, with Bright Hill alone, it's now put at over 90% on paper. So our job is to tell you, we've projected it, we're telling you what the future is. We see the concern really starting to hit Groveland in 2031 if market conditions continue. And if we don't have a plant under design this coming year, we're not going to meet 2031. And that jumps us to the next presentation at 12:30. But That's what the green represents. These commitments have been made by Groveland, not by any individual in this room, by the organization, the city of Groveland.
Rich, when you sit there and say, you said that you bake in a 10% safety factor on the plant, right?
Oh, it's more than that. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's more than that.
Yeah.
So you got the Sampi running at 1.5 million gallons a day, right? Because it's 110%.
1.1.
1.1.
Currently.
Okay.
1.1,
So-
yes.
And here, the mayor's saying you're putting in a plant equal in size, right next to it, and they're only allowing us 67.
Right. That's my frustration too.
You-
Why?
They're allowing you to run one plant at 1.1 million, and they're only allowing you to do a new one right next to it, same size at 67? That's the problem.
Yeah, we need
Well, I mean,
to,
even
explain
if you
that?
get to 0.33, it doesn't help you with all your future development. You still
We-
need more capacity.
we need to take that offline and figure out how we lobby with whoever we have to, but this very slide, that very.
Oops, sorry, sorry.
Don't do that. That slide says 366.8
Yep.
for, in the next 10 years. And we just, my math says we got 4,500 more houses just with what we've got when we put that new plant in motion. That's where I get the disconnect. We're going to run out, and we're going to run out of space in the next 4 years, but we only have 3,668 units coming
this-
in over the next 10 years.
This doesn't include Mascot as well, so that's factored into the remaining capacity. So you
That's
get to add in
20.
another
Oh,
175 to
Mascot.
200,000 gallons per day for
We're
Mascot.
giving away to Mascot, okay.
And
Well,
this
you
doesn't
sold it to them.
include businesses also that come in. This is just residential.
So far, just residential, that's part of the issue.
Some business.
ERUs, very low.
Goes to 46, so it's 20 years. It's not 10. The 36.
I mean, this is
3,600.
what's sold on paper, and that's the thing. So we're anticipating flows to happen over a certain period of time. So you guys may not reach 90% capacity for 5 or 6 or 7 years. So that, we're projecting that, but what you've approved for capacity that you've sold or near to be sold is what this is representing.
Do you think it's important that we have a calendar that is actually absolutely accurate so you can get grants for how many years before you start, grants for design, grants for different things rather than condensing it down? How many years do we really need to wait until we start building and then back in? I don't want to go into that because we're
Yeah.
going to run out of time here, but I
we've had
still am not clear. I'm still
Yeah.
not clear on that calendar and where we have to put the $100 million.
That green total, 3,668, is equivalent to over 900,000 gallons that have not hit either plant yet. That's the point, is on paper, when you add that to Sunshine, Sunshine's functioning today at 60, 63, but on paper, it's over 90% capacity. On paper, the newly expanded Sampi at 1.67, because of the Cypress Reserve approval, along with Cypress Bluff over off of Villa City Road, on paper, we're over 90% on the new plant. That's why we're saying we need to get started on design.
I just want to balance it out, TJ. We say we have this many homes, this time 2.7 or 3.01. I hear all kinds of different, how many in the population. We say in the concurrency plan is going to be 35,000, around 2035. I just want them to match up, and I'm not seeing the matches going all across the board with everybody. And it impacts the cost. It impacts what we've got to budget for. It impacts exactly what we've got to tell our constituents. This is what you got to be ready for. And concurrency needs to match up with you. You need to match up with that. We need to make sure we stick to it. I don't care how many the people have approved, the councils approved before. They can't build according to concurrency till we have the capacity. We're going to control who builds when based on that, right? That's why we got the concurrency plan. So this all has to fit together, and I just can't make all these plans that are going on fit together and come out as one sensible
And I'll
product.
ask of you, Mayor and Council, do not smash these two plants together as though we're able to operate them like we do the water system. The water system's interconnected. Right now, we have a connection, but it's currently today physically centered around Trinity Lakes only. What we're working toward is Can we pump more from the north? Can we pump the entire Commerce Park to the south, to Sampy, and buy us time? That's where we're trying to respect what you're asking is, but at the end of the day, we're going to be 2.67, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is the physical orientation of the two service areas. We're having to track them separately. Bright Hill is not hitting Sampy, it's hitting Sunshine. Cypress Reserve is not hitting Sunshine, it's hitting Sampy. We have to track it that way. So that, I think, is getting closer to what you're wanting to see is, why and when do these things hit?
Yeah, and I'm confused because that's why I thought we spent like $6 million putting a pipe between both of them.
But it's enabling the next step, which is now you can take care of Trinity Lakes. That's 1,000 homes that build out, 1,153 technically. Can we create a pumping system up north to redirect more flows than just Trinity Lakes? That's the commitment that your staff made when we did this force main, is what can we squeeze out of that opportunity?
We can beat this horse to
Rich,
death.
about how much of the slideshow have you not gotten into that we need to
Got about one
deliver?
more slide after this, I think.
The next meeting does start at
Yeah.
12:30. We do
Yep.
have lunch provided. It's about
Yep.
12:06. Mr. Mayor, you got the option in terms of timing.
After talking wastewater all morning.
Well,
I've
so-
lost my appetite.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah, so I mean, from our standpoint, on paper, what's approved is going to consume capacity. Whether we can squeeze some more out with permitting, we're looking at a significant amount of additional capacity needed to support pending developments, like a Villa City, like the remainder of Bright Hill. You know, we don't have 2,500 units available capacity for the remainder of Bright Hill. We don't have 2,000 units available to serve Villa City Phase 1. So one way or the other, we're looking at additional capacity needed. And when we think of the Sunshine facility as an aging facility, we made substantial investment in Sampy to expand it to what we could and rehabilitate a lot of infrastructure as part of that. Now, this is the subject for the 12:30 meeting as well, but when we look at the future capacity need, we're anticipating that might be in the 1.5 MGD range. Now, a property has been secured off of Villa City Road, 25 acres. That can probably support a 5 or 6 MGD plant. So when we look at how we size that plant, we're taking those projected numbers of pending. And again, this is a matter of whether developers are coming forward now for this investment. This is an investment in its future capacity that they're going to realize that the city also has available for future economic development investment. So when we look at the beginning of this slide, we think 1.5 MGD expandable to 3. So we designed some components so that they can be easily expanded, and so that economy of scale is gained with future capacity expansion. And we think about 0.8 of that is what's pending. When you take it Bright Hill, Villa City Phase 1, you take any other developments that are on that list that we had that don't have capacity now that they can purchase, they'd purchase capacity as a portion of this facility. So we're looking at a funding strategy that leverages those developments that are going to commit. And if we don't think a 1.5 MGD plant can be funded, we'll have to scale that back. So we're trying to right-size that capacity for the new facility. And so when we look at that, we have planning numbers that have been provided for, construction, engineering. And the facility plan that we'll talk about at 12:30 is really just going through the process of this is the plan that was developed to support this, and this is the pathway for SRF funding for design. And we'll talk a little bit more about that then. But I just wanted to recap or kind of how we're looking at the northern facility. I don't know if you want to add to that, TJ?
Well, the big thing that I want to emphasize about the 25 acres of already having that in hand, and why we're even suggesting 1.5 is Groveland, regardless, has committed itself to where we need at least a 1 MGD in addition to Sunshine for that north service area. Bright Hill being a big driver. But if the city doesn't have any option at all already in motion, if Villa City comes out of hibernation to exercise their property rights under state law, if we don't have something to point to, that's a detriment to whoever that city council is when they come in here. So we're planning for Villa City. We're planning for the other scenarios, including Bright Hill. We're planning for could Mascot or Howie offer to help pay for this plant? And why would we even entertain it? Because there are certain fixed costs that no matter what, Groveland's going to have to pay that goes toward this facility. If we can get another city to help pay for some of those fixed costs, and they give us the reclaimed water opportunity for us to sell. So we're looking at all these opportunities of what's going to protect the city's interest for the city council that's sitting in 2031 that's going to be hopeful that this plant's finished. So with that said, we're going to lay out these costs again, but I want to correct something that was said Monday night. We continue to come up with scenarios of how we can get that design cost. So when we do the clean water facilities presentation for this next 12:30 public meeting, we've already reduced what we think we need to ask for in terms of a request for funding from the state, and now we're at $6.1 million to get the design phase underway. So we'll review this again shortly, and we have one more slide that's extremely important.
That's a loan, not a grant, right? We're borrowing 6.1.
It's a borrow for design, and we
From the
may be
state.
surprised with.
Sometimes when we say from the state, people think it's a grant. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's
We're-
not
we're paying
guaranteed
for
to
it.
be a grant
loan.
yet.
Yeah, that's all right.
And this one I'm going to take because I'm excited. We're bringing you an ordinance. The code has a couple of provisions in there that are helpful. Like, there's some provisions in there about prepayment and when you can and cannot accept it. But we want to bolster everything because of what we're talking to you about. We're not trying, I don't like that word. We are putting components in place for us to be financially effective and protective of our existing residents and customers. So by bolstering through ordinance to change the code to better improve our prepayment policy, the fact that you cannot accept a prepayment for a facility that hasn't been built yet, that's what capacity reservation charges are for. And that's a charge they pay today to know they've got a predictable process while we work on the plant, knowing that they have to pay the remaining charges for whatever the impact fee is when they actually build. Then there's this other component. If the city of Groveland's approving a plat with lots, you should have to pay a monthly utility bill because you're allowed to connect to our system, regardless if the house is there yet or not. You've been approved for your lots. You're already taking up capacity in the system. And then finally, can we also be able, in ordinance with our attorney's blessing, to be able to charge base charges for these projects that are entitled, that are attempting to move forward, that just haven't platted yet, like Bright Hill Phase 2 being an example. So all this is coming back to you by October.
Okay, and maybe on the next one, since everybody wants to eat, I had questions here about non-resident charges on impact fees, county people that we hook up, because they're in our utility district, what their impact fees are versus regular, and what they're, I know you just charge them 25% more, but I'd really like to understand
Yes, sir.
what that is as well.
One really quick thing, TJ. Right now, you said our current impact fee is $10,000 for wastewater. Based on the $107 million cost of a new plant, it should be $17,000.
We've done the same math, Councilman.
Okay.
And that's why this Raftellus update's a big deal.
Okay.
If we could just really quickly, just to make better use out of the next time we come together as a group, if you could just set expectations on anything that wasn't answered today, so we could really clearly define that and make sure that the team comes back very concise and gets you those answers.
If I could be more bold, I would say we came in here for capacity and issues that we've just been talking about. We didn't need the whole front part about Woodard and Curran. You know, I mean, I understand that you wanted to let everybody know, but our target for this symposium was on capacity. And we need to, when we set a goal, when we say what we need, that's what we should stick to and not put all the stuff around it, you know. Adjourn for lunch?